Hello, everyone, and you're listening to the Triple T podcast, Tony's Tech Talks. It's Tony Seminary, and I'm based in the City of Roses, Portland, Oregon. Thank you very much for listening. During my day job, when I'm not doing podcast, I'm the founder and CEO of IT Motives. We're a technology recruiting company, and we help our clients with executive search, direct placement, and contract staffing, both on a retained and contingent basis. If you'd like to learn more about IT Motives, please go to our website. It's itmotives.com, and you can also find all of our Triple T podcasts there as well. The premise of Triple T, Tony's Talks, is really to get to know people's stories, understand how they got into technology, how they're using technology, what's going on out there in technology. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce the guest on my show today. Her name is Mariah Scott. Mariah, it is a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
That's great. The first question I normally start with, and we'll start with you as well, is tell us about your story, Mariah, like the Reader's Digest version of it. And a couple questions that kind of get us going on that would be, where did you grow up? Where do you call home today? And then the second is, can you tell us how you got to this point in your your journey, and how you got to this point in your professional life?
Sure. So it's not a very neat and tidy story. I'll just say that up front. You know, I think a lot of people try to tell their life story like it's always been up and to the right. And mine's maybe more like a tree that has a lot of different branches, and there's some core kind of trunk there, but it only starts to make sense when you stand back and you go, oh, that's a tree out there. So I'm from Indiana originally. I'm from a small town in Indiana, and I grew up there, went to college in the Midwest at Carleton, and have been in Portland, Oregon for probably pretty close to 30 years now, I think, actually.
Wow.
Long time.
Yeah.
So I think I have to say that I would call Oregon home, but I would never say I was from Oregon. I always say that I'm from Indiana, because I think you're from where you grow up. And I grew up in Indiana.
Sure.
Let's see. So I talked about many branches. The first branch maybe is when I was graduating from high school, and I failed my aptitude test because I didn't have any of the skills that I needed to be a cashier or a secretary. And those were the two jobs that were good for Midwestern girls in the 1980s. Those were great jobs. They weren't great jobs for me. So even though I had failed my aptitude test, I went on to college. I went to Carleton, got a degree in Japanese, did a lot of theater, spent a number of years in Asia, working in Asia. That was fantastic. Came back to the States and got an MBA at Kellogg at Northwestern University, also a fantastic Midwestern school. And then I came to work for Intel out in Portland. And I was really fortunate to join Intel at a great time. There was a lot of innovation happening in the company. I got great training. I got great exposure. It was a fantastic culture, and I learned so much. I got to do some amazing things. I got to work on new business initiatives and learn all about bringing software to market. I also got to run the Intel Inside program, which was Intel's largest marketing program at the time. And that was a global team, and we had customers all over the world. It was really exciting. Then I left and joined kind of the startup world in Portland, and served as a COO for a company called ShiftWise, which was focused on healthcare staffing, and also Senior Vice President at WebMD, did kind of a stint in healthcare IT and healthcare services. And that's where I was when Diane Freeman from Voyager Capital, who, if you're from the Portland community, all of the Portland community in tech is 1 degree of separation from Diane Freeman. And she was investing in this startup drone company called Skyward. And she said, hey, I need somebody who knows enterprise markets and enterprise software. And she recruited me to come in and be the COO. And I've been working in drones and robotics for the last 8 years. So there you go.
Very
It's
good.
a long,
Very good.
winding tale, but it's been a lot of fun.
I don't know if most people know about Carleton College. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's one of the top like 20 schools in the country not called Ivy League or Stanford or Washington University. Am I correct?
Yes, you are. It's pretty consistently in the top 10 for private liberal arts colleges. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, most people have heard of Northwestern and, of course, the Kellogg School of Management, where you got your MBA from. But yes, it's interesting. I'd never heard of Carleton until about maybe a month ago or so. Just happened to have a feed come up in my Google, and it said top schools that aren't Ivy League or Stanford. And I'm like, oh, interesting. And I'm like, I think Mariah went there. I just made the connection. Yeah.
It's a small college, and it's not super common to find Carleton grads out on the West Coast. Although, you know who else is a Carleton graduate? Our gubernatorial candidate, Betsy Johnson, went to Carleton.
Interesting. Okay.
And I was so surprised. I thought this is unusual. This is super unusual.
That's anyway, funny. Yeah, interesting. Where is it? Is it Indiana, Ohio? Where is it based?
In Minnesota. It's actually
it's in Minnesota. Okay.
Just outside of Minneapolis. So I learned we had tunnels on campus because there was so much snow in the winter. I mean, there's
right.
So much snow, like as tall as my head. I would ski to class, had cross-country skis and would ski to class, or take the tunnels if you wanted to like avoid the snow. It was fantastic. I loved it.
That is what I've always heard Minneapolis, St. Paul known for. I've been to that city a few times, and they have the walking bridges, you know, that connect building downtown, because there's so much snow in the winter, and it's so incredibly hot in the summer, like two different extremes. Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Minneapolis is a great city. It's a lot like Portland. The years that I was there, it's a lot like Portland, really vibrant, great scene. It was fun.
Yeah. And I don't know Diane personally, but I've always heard about Diane, and it's one point of separation in Portland, but I probably even less so with Diane. You know, I mean, it seems like she knows everybody, and it's interesting how she recruited you to Skyward. Tell us how Skyward and Verizon, I kind of know the story. Maybe tell others, because you were formerly the president at Verizon, the robotics division. Tell us about that connection. How did that come about? How did you land at Verizon?
So I joined Skyward, as I mentioned, after the first venture round, and that was in 2014. And we were focused on the time at trying to help commercial drone operators safely figure out how to use drones in their business. It was a pretty high level premise. And drones in 2014, it was still illegal to fly drones commercially. So that was a pretty big risk on my part. Like, this seems like it's going to be a really transformational technology as soon as the FAA allows it. So that happened in 2016. By then, we had product in the market. We were starting to power commercial drone programs and help them with airspace planning and flight planning and operations management. And Verizon had joined as an investor. So I was the COO. I took the company through with the founder, Jonathan Evans. We took the company through 2 rounds of funding, and Verizon joined in one of those rounds. And they were a really fantastic board observer. They really understood what we were trying to do. They understood that drones are just another node on the network. And that's going to be, that's a really powerful concept. So in 2017, Verizon acquired Skyward, and I became the president. Verizon really invested in us. We were quite small when we were acquired, but they invested in the company tremendously. We
Mm-hmm.
scaled out across the US. I had the opportunity to actually join the CEO, Hans Vestberg, on stage for his CES keynote twice.
Hmm.
That was really, really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2021, we decided to expand to ground robotics, and we acquired a company in Austria called Incubed IT that focuses on autonomous mobile robots. So then I had a portfolio of companies that I was leading, both drones and ground robotics, where we were doing operations management, fleet management, command and control, navigation, airspace access, really kind of end-to-end services for enterprises who are trying to adopt that technology and safely and efficiently use it to automate work. And most of our customers were trying to automate getting data, like inspection and surveying and monitoring data.
Mm-hmm.
They were automating flow, like in a warehouse where you're using robots and automation to automate materials handling or material flow. So pretty exciting portfolio, great play for Verizon. These are new devices for the network, new devices to take advantage of 5G.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, in the US, the regulatory climate and the market conditions for commercial drones have not really evolved in the way that Verizon had hoped in the pace.
Mm-hmm.
So they made a
Mm-hmm.
decision in the spring to exit the Skyward business. And I've spent the last few months really winding down operations, taking care of our customers, ensuring that employees had a good transition, and making sure that we took care of all of the wind down of those operations. And so I've been wrapping that up, and now I'm looking for the next big thing.
So you're a free agent.
I'm a free agent. Yeah. That's a great way to put it. It's exciting. I mean, I really love being at the intersection of software and hardware that is helping companies transform the way they work. You think back across my career, those are the things that really draw me in, where we have the opportunity to have impact. We're building software, hardware, we're putting together new systems, we're helping companies see the potential of how that can really change the way they work, whether that is drones or autonomous robots or telehealth, which I did at Intel. You're really changing the way we operate in a way that is good. I know that recently we're starting to think about maybe technology is not all that. But the spaces that I have really focused in, I believe so much in the potential of technology to really transform the way we do work in a way that helps us do more and keep humans safer and get better information.
Yeah, very good. Do you want to stay in the drone world as you look at your next opportunity, or what have you been able to kind of? I think this is new, right? The transition out of Verizon for you. So have you had a chance to think about what that might look like, the next one for you?
I'm very interested in the kind of general field of robotics, both ground and aerial, automation, IoT. There is a lot of potential there for transformation, and a lot of the challenges that companies face are really similar. You've got a new technology in a highly regulated market. You need to be able to collaborate with the humans who are in the space, but you're really changing the nature of work. So that's a pretty exciting place to be. There's a lot happening, and it would be fun to stay in that space for sure. I'm still kind of just taking the temperature and thinking about, okay, what's going to be the right thing? I really like the high growth, early stage nature of those markets in robotics and automation, IoT. And I have a lot of experience working in regulatory markets and helping customers and helping regulators learn how to trust the technology. But one of my lessons learned in drones was just the pace that the market and the regulators can move is maybe not the same as the pace that an entrepreneur might, be wanting to move.
Sure. Why has the commercial drone market not done as well as Verizon was hoping in the US? Does it go back to regulatory issues? What's that about? What's the hold up, bottleneck, et cetera? Maybe you could, this is like really interesting to me, but I'm very much, I don't know anywhere near what you know. What's that like? What's the problems?
Sure. Well, I should say that there are a lot of ways that drones are very useful. So there are all kinds of inspection, surveying, monitoring, real estate, weddings, events, media. If you watch the news, you fairly often see that the footage that you're watching is credited to drone footage. So there are a lot of great cases where drones have been really useful, but at Verizon, we really had a vision of connecting drones to the network and being able to deploy autonomously fleets of connected drones. And to do that, we required regulatory change in allowing drones to fly what's called beyond visual line of sight and to fly one to many. So in today's regulations, a drone operator can only fly one drone, and they can only fly it within their line of sight. So if you think about some of the use cases like delivery drones, you want to have a fleet of drones who are networked and who can go out and make their package deliveries. But the current regulatory environment makes that very challenging because of the one-to-one rule and the within line of sight rule. And the FAA has been working on this for a long time. We've participated in the rulemaking committees with the FAA. I actually sat on a national drone advisory committee that helped advise the FAA from industry. So it's a well-known set of regulatory concerns, and there's a lot of work happening. It's just very, very complex. It's complex. There are a lot of stakeholders to balance. You have to consider existing air traffic. Helicopters are in the same airspace as drones. You have to consider airports. Most cities, are also within controlled airspace of a major airport or multiple major airports. So there's just a lot of complexity to figuring it out. It still has that huge potential. It's just a complicated landscape.
Do you get a sense for when it might, quote, figured out? You've been in it for how many years? 8 years now?
I've been in it for 8 years, and I would say that we have been saying that it was 3 to 5 years away for the last 8 years. So if I said 3 to 5 years away, that would be very consistent with what I've been saying for the last 8 years, and also I hear from many other industry leaders. Yeah, okay.
Gotcha. Besides working in robotics, ground robotics, drones, et cetera, are there other opportunities that you'd like to look at? I know you mentioned early, high growth, early stage companies, other niches that kind of pique your interest, so to say.
I'm very interested in industrial robotics and in what's happening with autonomous mobile robots. They're being used both indoors and outdoors in ways that are really transformative for a lot of different types of businesses. And in many ways, they're going after the same enterprise problems that drones were going after. How do I get my data faster? How do I do a task that is dangerous for humans or hazardous for humans? And we're seeing a lot of innovation in autonomous mobile robots in those areas that I think is pretty exciting. It would be exciting to continue to be involved in that. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Good. Do you see yourself moving out of Portland? You've been here 30 plus years. Do you think those opportunities will allow you to, so to say, stay here? Or do you think you might need to move outside of the area to go find some of those opportunities, assuming they may not exist here in Portland?
We'll have to see. I think COVID really kind of scrambled the rules on a lot of that.
Yeah.
I know for my own business at Skyward, we went from having everyone in the office in Portland to being fully distributed across the US. And during the pandemic, we were out of the office for 2.5 years. People moved
Mm-hmm.
all over. We hired a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people from all over the country. It actually
Mm-hmm.
allowed us to really open our vision and hire people who weren't in Portland. So we got more diversity onto the team, and that was fantastic. And in
Yep.
many cases, we saw productivity increase. So if I look at my own experience of leading a company during the pandemic, that's just one data point. But that also causes me to think that, those ideas about jobs that are in a location, I think we're moving away from that for a lot of positions, and that it's much more your ability to lead the team, to rally people to the mission, to keep them focused on
Mm-hmm.
that. And of course, you still need some in person, but I think we're moving much more away from this job must be located in this place, at least in tech, for a lot of tech jobs.
So I think
So
there's a new normal. There's a new normal out there for
I think there's
not
a new
needing to
normal
be in the office.
for a lot of jobs. And I know that a lot
Yep.
of the work that I did with my leadership team in the last 2 years was really trying to think about, when do we need to be in person and what are we trying to achieve when we're in person? So a lot of that creative work, a lot of the brainstorming and the sort of whiteboarding of here's a new idea and here's how we're going to go after it. There are
Mhm.
tools to do that online, but I think it's more challenging. But you don't have to be in the office every day for that. You can come into the office
Sure.
once a quarter and spend a 2-day strategic planning session and be super productive. And so I think we're shifting. I think that we will continue seeing that shift in tech jobs.
Mm-hmm. I want to come back to the diversity thing here in a second.
Yeah.
Before I do, though, talk about culture, Mariah, not only the next opportunity for you and what that culture would look like, but also the kind of culture that you create as a president, as a leader within technology. I guess part question regarding culture.
Yeah. It's a great question. And I think one of the myths that is out there about being a leader, and I think this maybe is more true for women, is that if you're the president or you're the leader, then you can't have work-life balance, or somehow you have to be I'm just the leader, that's all I am. And
Mm-hmm.
that has not been my experience. I would say that actually being the leader lets me set the tone and set the culture and be a role
Mm-hmm.
model for the kinds of teams that I want to be a part of. And that in
Mm-hmm.
some ways makes it easier to integrate the other elements of your life than if you weren't the leader. I mean, it's fortunate in that sense that I get to set the tone. And a lot of the tone that I have really worked on setting is one of collaboration. I think very often we have this model that a leader is like this visionary lone wolf, male character who is going to bring the
Mm-hmm.
tablets down the mountain and have all the answers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm not that kind of leader. In my experience, you get better answers when you have more voices at the table, and
Mm-hmm.
get better answers through collaboration. So you asked me about culture. I work really hard to create a collaborative culture where it's safe to ask questions, it's safe to not know the answers, and together as a team, we work on solving those problems and finding those answers. I think if you get to an expectation where someone else is going to answer the question, people lean back. They lean back and they just wait to be told. And when you're in a new business, when you're driving innovation, you can't be leaning back. Everybody's got to be leaning forward. So you have to create a culture where it's safe to ask questions, it's safe to not know. You can have confidence in the collaboration with the team that you're going to work together and you're going to figure it out. And it's going to be hard, but that's why you have a team of people around you. That expectation that you can just be successful on your own. I mean, I don't believe that. You got to ask for help. Even the people we think of as like the most successful visionary leader, like they have many, many people around them helping them be successful all the time. So creating that kind of culture where people feel they're part of something bigger and that they can reach out to their teammates and together figure it out. That's exciting to me.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. Yes, and I agree. I think there's, as a leader, you're not going to know all the answers, and you need your team to help you. There is the collaboration, some consensus, the making it safe. You use the word safe a couple times, making it safe to ask questions, making it safe to not know anything, making it safe to talk out loud. Let me just think about this for a second, or let me just throw something out there, and it's not a bad thing. It's an okay thing. It's a normal thing.
It's a normal thing. It's a lot easier to say those things than to actually do that. I have been really fortunate to have a great team at Skyward who really worked with me, and we all learned together. How do we have healthy debate? Because you don't always get consensus, and if you wait until you get consensus, you never get anything done. So collaboration, though, where everyone gets to say their piece, we debate those issues. It doesn't get personal. We figure out what's the problem we're trying to solve, what's the customer really need, make a decision. Once we make that decision, then everybody has to go. We can't have a pocket veto or, oh, I didn't really say anything, so I'm not really bought in. Part of the collaboration is also that once we make the decision, we're all going to commit and we're going to go. And that's something I credit Intel for. Intel's famous for disagree and commit.
Yes.
And
yes.
I learned that growing up at Intel.
I've heard that many times from people at Intel: disagree but commit. I was just going to say that, and it dawned on me as you're talking. I'm like, yes, well, of course, you worked at Intel, so that makes perfect sense.
Yep.
Diversity. So during the pandemic, the productivity went up and diversity increased. Is there a correlation with the work from home and the ability to increase diversity? I would think yes. It sounds like that may have been your experience, because now, instead of saying we can only hire in X locale, Portland, Oregon, we can now hire wherever to find our candidates. But was that kind of the experience you all had at Verizon within your unit? Yeah.
That's exactly true. And you've been in the Portland market for a long time, Tony, so it's challenging. It's a challenging market to recruit in. It's not that big. Hard to find diverse candidates. A lot of people don't want to move here, especially during the last 2 or 3 years. It's been hard to get people to relocate to Portland. But when COVID hit, we all had to kind of reassess and be, okay, the rules are different. Once we figured out that this was going to be a while, it wasn't going to be a few weeks, it was going to be for the foreseeable future, this is how we're working. It really opened up a lot of opportunities. We could recruit anywhere in the country, and that made it possible to recruit a lot more diversity onto the team. And I think it really helped. I think we got better skills, we got better answers. We had to learn new ways of building the team and building team culture, because you didn't have people, in the office every day. But we were able to just bring in new viewpoints and new experience that really helped. And I think that's true for a lot of the folks I know at Verizon and a lot of the folks I know in the technical community. The ability to look outside wherever you happen to be located helps you find better talent, I think. And especially as Portland tries to recover from the pandemic and from the impact of the pandemic. I mean, let's just be honest, it's challenging right now. So it's good. It's to be able to recruit outside the city and still keep people, committed to the team, I think.
And a lot of challenges that, besides the ones you're alluding to, but also it's hard to get people to move here because of that's, real estate cost and the prices of real estate, things like that.
Yep.
It is astronomically higher. I think it's went up. What's the median home price? Probably in 10 years, it's probably close to doubled. I mean, it's crazy. And so to get people to come here, that's a harder sell if you're from, a place where it's $200 a square foot or even less. Coming to Portland, it's 300 plus, and it's really cost prohibitive. It really keeps people from being able to move here. Next best thing is, okay, well, you don't have to move here, and we'll have access to all of these other candidates that otherwise we didn't, as you needed to live here. So
Yes.
I think that's a very, very good thing. And I think that's what other companies, I think, experienced as well. And so I think it just helped them with their diversity efforts. What's it like, Mariah, being not just a female in technology, but like the CEO, the president, the boss, right? I mean, I was asking you earlier about culture and the kind of place you want to work for, but I guess the only people you would answer to are as a board, right? I mean, you're the one you're the boss. So what's it like though for you over the years? What's it like for you?
You're always answering to someone, whether that is,
Of course.
We were a wholly owned company of Verizon, but we were part of the new business incubation group. So, I had a senior vice president at Verizon who had oversight of that, and had a board before that, have had boards, before in other positions as well. You're always answering to somebody. That's okay. That's good. That's a level of oversight that's needed to, keep things moving in the right direction.
Sure.
I would say I mentioned that I grew up at Intel. Intel, when I was there, was a very merit-driven environment. So I didn't ever feel that being a woman was necessarily a disadvantage. It was a place where we debated the ideas, the best idea won. People believed in that debate. They believed in listening. And I'm a pretty direct communicator, and I like a challenge. So that environment was good for me. I got great management training at Intel. I always felt like it was very meritocratic. I would say that actually the first time in my career that I really experienced being a female leader as a disadvantage is when we were raising money for Skyward, and we were on the road trying to raise money from VCs. I was not prepared for what an old boys club that really was. And actually had one VC tell me that we needed to have an old white guy as the COO, and then it would be easier to raise money. And I was so shocked in the moment, So we didn't go with them. We found other investors who were fantastic and who supported us, and we grew the business. So I know it's out there, and I feel fortunate that my experience has been what it is. And I feel fortunate that I have been in a place where I could set the tone, where I could set a more inclusive tone. I could set a tone that focused on collaboration instead of sort of hero worship. And I think that's been a good way to bring in different voices and provide opportunities for more people to contribute.
Wow, that's crazy that happened to you with VC.
It's not crazy. I don't think that I'm unique in that way. It just, it's kind of a different world. And I think in recent years, in the last maybe 3 or 4 years, there's been a lot of focus specifically in venture capital and in bringing more women into venture capital, and focusing on female founders and fundraising for both on the venture side and on the founder side, more women coming in and more support for women. So I think that's really good. It really needs to happen.
Well, how do we empower more women to get into technology, and not just tech, but also technology leadership?
You got to trust yourself and have the courage of your convictions, and be willing
Mhm.
to take some risks. In my
Mhm.
career, I would try to ask myself, what can I learn from this job? Does this work matter? Is this work that I think is going to be positive in its impact? And then who's the team? And the team is really important. And if I felt that the team was a team that I could trust, the team that I could work with, a team that would collaborate with me, then you have to push yourself to take that risk, to say, okay, I'm going to take
Mhm.
that risk. I'm going to take that leap. Um,
Mhm.
trying to stay on some path that you imagine, I think that's really hard. It works for some people, and that's great. But I think for a lot more people, it's like the branches on the tree that I said, where you're like, oh, this is a branch where I can learn some things. These are good.
Mhm.
I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to try that. You got to be willing to put your hand up and ask, especially in tech
Mhm.
and especially in leadership. You can't just
Mhm.
wait to be noticed. Got to
Mhm.
got to put yourself out there.
Mhm. Mhm. Gotcha. I hear the word I would think of as confidence,
Yeah.
being able to put yourself out there, trust yourself, ask for help.
Ask for help. Yes. Being confident and putting yourself out there does not mean that you have to have all the answers. I mean,
Mhm.
most of the time, I only have the questions. I have lots of
Mhm.
questions, but I have confidence. I have confidence that with a team of people, we can figure out the answers. We can go make progress. We can go after that. And it's that kind of confidence, being willing to ask for help, being willing to put yourself out there to say, yeah, I'll try. I'll go
Yeah,
after that.
sure,
I
sure.
think I don't know that that's specific to being a woman or specific to technology, but that is something that has been helpful for me.
Sure. You've been incredibly successful in your career, Mariah. It's obvious. Um, what are some things that you attribute to that success? You kind of have alluded to it a little bit, but what are some tips and tricks, your mindset? Like, what would you tell others about how you've got to this point in your career and all the success that you've had?
Well, the piece I was just talking about, I think, is really the key. Trying for me has been the key. I would also say uh, career, your career plan, growth pattern, whatever, is not a one size fits all at all.
Mhm,
I can tell
mhm,
you that for me, um, I spent a lot of time thinking, oh, I have to find my one passion, because we have this idea that go follow your passion. Well, I have lots of passions. I have lots of things that I'm interested in. And I think many people are that way, especially people who work in technology. We're curious. We want to learn the
mhm,
new things. We want to see how can we make things better. And so that leads you into lots of different paths. And I think that's fine. And for me, I've tried to focus on, does this work matter? And for matter could be, does it help people? Is it helping the planet? Is it having a positive impact on the community? Is it helping a business operate better so that I can feel that I'm having impact in the work that I do?
mhm,
What can I learn? I mentioned, what can I learn? I'm really a
mhm,
curious person. I want
mhm.
why I'm in tech, because it's always new and different, and you can always be learning something else. And then
Yep.
who's the team? Is this a team that I can collaborate with? Is this a team that will be fun to work with and that I can learn from? Because I've also found that the team makes the work meaningful. I mean, sometimes something that I might have thought, oh, that's interesting, but isn't, a passion. When I see the team of people and I think, oh, we're going to build this together and we're going to make this happen, we're going to solve these problems, that makes the work meaningful. And I would give that advice too. Don't the especially now that so much of the work is virtual, you really have to
Mhm,
look for, how can we make those connections, and is this a team that that we can connect with so that we can do great things. That's what it's about.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. Last couple questions for you. What is your why, Mariah? Besides, like, you go to work because you're providing, for yourself, you got a roof over your head, food on the table, all of that, all of those kind of basic things. But what gets you out of bed every day and say, I can't wait to go to work? I am so passionate about this. What's your why?
I think my why is some variation of what I just said around having impact. I want to, at my heart, I want to feel that the work that I'm doing is helping people, whether that's helping them work in a way that is more efficient, whether that's helping them transform their business, helping them transform the planet. That's a thing I've been thinking about a lot lately, is what role and responsibility does technology play in sustainability and helping us have less impact on the planet? I've been thinking about that a lot. And even if I'm contributing in small ways to that, I want to have that positive impact. And when you are able to do that with a team of people that are all committed to the purpose and they're all working together, and you see how complementary your skills are and how together you can do more than any of you could do by yourself, that is a really powerful feeling. And that's why I get up. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Very cool. What do you do on the weekends when you're not leading technology organizations? I know you have a big trip coming to Croatia. You're bicycling the coast there. I'm very you. What do you do on the weekends?
I've been a hiker and a backpacker for a long time. And the trip to Croatia this fall is actually my first cycling trip. So I hope I like it.
Wow. No kidding.
Yeah, I hope I like it. I think
You've never cycled before?
I mean, I ride a bike, but I'm not like, super serious road biker person.
Okay.
Cool. I like a challenge. I got a bunch of friends. They're like, hey, we're going cycling in Croatia. Do you want to come? I thought, okay, I'll try that. I'll try that. So I'm going to do that. I'm really excited about that. I also had the opportunity to go hiking in the Alps this summer in July when I was there, and that was fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah, really great to see so many places on the planet opening up again after, several years. I really have missed just that travel. I'm excited to get back out there and do that again. I spend a lot of time with my dog. Like most Portlanders, maybe. I love my dog.
What's your dog's name?
My dog's name is Kiko, and she's a border terrier, which is a small and feisty terrier, but she also likes to hike, and she can ride in the kayak. I live near the Willamette, so I do paddling in the Willamette, and she has her little life vest, and she sits on top of the boat. She's way up. Yeah.
That's cool. How
fun.
long are you going to be in Croatia for doing the cycling trip?
I'm going to be in Europe for 3 weeks, and the cycling trip is a week.
Okay.
Then I'm going to hang out and see some friends and go to some other places and actually be a tourist in Europe and not be there for work, which seems like it'll be really exotic and
right.
Yeah, for a change. Yeah. I won't be in meetings all day. I'll get to actually see the cities. It'll be great.
Sure. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. One last question. What's a fun fact that someone may not know about you that you'd like to share?
You sent me this question ahead of time, and I was sitting here with my son, and I said, Jackson, what's a fun fact? He goes, you should just make something up, Mom. He's like, you have a glass blowing shop on the coast.
That's funny.
Oh, and it just made me laugh. So I have a glass blowing shop on the coast.
I would believe it.
I know.
I
I
would
could just
believe
say it. That's what he said. He's like, just say something, that'll be fun.
Uh, that's
Yeah.
cool. Well, maybe one day you might.
Maybe one day I will. Maybe that's my secret next passion is starting up a glass blowing shop on the coast. I don't know. It's hard to imagine, but lots of people do it, I guess. So
you'll have a glass blowing shop in Cannon Beach, and you'll be hanging out there and just
and we'll have robots.
enjoying.
We'll have robots doing the glass blowing. That's what we'll do.
There you go. There you go. That's right. Mariah, it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's just awesome to get to know you better. And for everybody listening, for full disclosure, we're on the TAO board together. And I've only been for about 6 or 7 months, but it was great to catch up with you a couple months ago. And so glad that you came on the show. I really appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thank you. It was really fun.